Go to cloud.
Are you on beer tonight, Bruce?
No, I've tried, believe it or not, some like cream egg beer, and I have to say that was it. A girl at work, her brother had got a can. They bought it as a surprise. Sold out, in like record time. It was, but it was absolutely astonishing stuff. And I think I'll try one soon and drink coffee. I will start drinking again soon, I feel. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, as you can tell, everybody, we're back. We're back from the vaccine hell that we've had for the last week or so. So yeah, we're a bit late getting this one out. It's been long. It feels like a bloody years since we all stood here again talking to each other. So welcome to episode 9, which is all about York, and I put drinking with Vikings and Romans. So Bruce is going to be in the chair for most this evening. So again, Bruce's COVID. There's a book here, Bruce, isn't there? So you've had the bloody thing, you've been self-isolating, you get the bloody vaccine, and that sends you doolally for God knows how many days. So it's just, I think Boris has got it in for you, hasn't he, really?
Hopefully the saga's over. I was escaped the plasma testing, though, because they've cancelled the trial, so there's no benefit. So I did escape that one.
And then then, you went for your jab at 8 o'clock at night, and then you didn't get it because there was some problem with it. So they sent you away. Then you came all the way back again in 2 days' time, whatever it was. And then got
the problem is, Bruce, you're a city boy now. You need to be in the countryside with all the muck and good old germs. And you get a good dose of that, no problem at all. I had my injection on Monday. Yeah, a little bit of a sore arm, but fine, no worries.
It was bizarre. I was fine after. If I felt it, bizarrely enough, I had it. And I felt the best I've felt in months since I had COVID, almost like I'd had a line of coke or something. Not that I've ever had a line of coke, but I felt too well and woke up
City boy
morning and felt too well. And then about 10:30, we cleared shut up. I just felt terrible. And by 11:30, I just took to my bed and slept solid for about 6 hours. It was absolutely bizarre.
So I think, as I said in the tweet, we're all child of the 60s. So thankfully, we're in that age group, because I'm not quite sure how many more vaccines will be left after next week, and whether we can sort out the battle with the French and the Germans.
At least on the passport to get a pint.
Yeah, that's true, actually. Yeah, I do think that. And I've got my second one booked in for the end of May. I don't know if you guys have got your second ones booked in yet, but so we'll see how it goes. So yeah, it's good to be back. So we have a little bit of a longer wait. So we're going to crack on with that. We'll do the normal big pickups. I think we've been quite a lot, really. We had the camera 50th birthday last week. We've had the Winter Beer Festival last weekend. I did quite a nice little evening with that Hot Fuzz Brewery. It was quite good. We've had Paddy's Day last week as well, so it's been quite a fun-filled last couple of weeks, really. Nicholas, what are you on this evening?
Okay, so I'm being loyal to Massam tonight, so I've just cracked this one, Thixton's Pale Ale. Don't think I've had that one before. It was sort of mixed in with other Thixton's beers, and I thought, hang on, yeah, Thixton's not had a pale ale, so that's my first one. I'm going to give that one a blast now. That's a 4.5.
Looks like some new branding as well there. They all peculiar seal and then quite a bit of new branding. Yeah,
I think so. And then following up with their neighbours, I've got a bottle of Gold Sheep, and that's obviously Black Sheep Brewery. So good. Yeah, there are three different Black Sheep beers in Morrison's today, so
right,
quite impressed.
Three months on in the podcast, 3 months since Christmas. Bruce, still, I hear you might have had some beer this week, but
I did.
There's none in front of you this evening.
The Goose Island cream egg beer that we featured a few weeks ago. A colleague at work, her brother had managed to get 4 cans, and she brought a can in for 3 of us to try at work. It was absolutely amazing. That will be back. And the head was absolutely stunning. It was like no beer head you've had before. If you could imagine a beery cream egg head, that's exactly what it was. It was absolutely astonishing. No, but apart from that, I did get some Guinness sausages from Lidl for St. Patrick's Day. I love Guinness. Normally, I love sausages, but I'd say the two don't go together at all. So an anticlimax here.
Okay, well, I'm on some homebrew tonight because I've said my mate Simon, we have a lockdown treat. We bought a pinter, this new brewing system from the Great Good Brewing Company, Fresh Brewing. They are on Twitter. I'm drinking. So I'm actually made this. It's a dark matter espresso stout, and it tastes blooming nice actually. And we've just been explaining. I've got a couple of pictures later on, and I've got a couple of these now. There was a deal where you got kind of two two of the kind of brewing vessels. So I've got 2 brews going, so I'll come back to that. I thought we'd better celebrate St. Patrick, so I'm going to then move on to a bottle of Killarney Red from the Breon Brew House, which is interesting. Now, I've had a couple of these in one of the boxes that I've got. Again, I'm going to talk about Roger Protz in a minute. It's a theme that we talked about. Roger mentioned this on Sunday. I didn't realise it, actually. Do you know that Ireland at the moment, there are 2 breweries, which is Guinness and Heineken. Heineken now obviously own Murphy's and Beamish, and they make 98% of all Irish beer just between those 2 breweries, which is just morning. And so I think it's really great that there are some very small breweries that are kind of coming along now. And again, it's interesting because I picked this up a couple of weeks ago. Northern Ireland at the moment, there's a real problem in Northern Ireland where breweries there cannot sell beer. They cannot sell beer. They have to sell it on to other people. There's no off trade from a brewery. Then they can't have a tap. They can't sell your cans. They've got to sell everything on in weird legislation. And so again, there's a couple of petitions going around. Please, if people listening, and you can see one of those sign up. It's just bonkers that there's some great brewers in Northern Ireland and in Ireland, but there's still some weird laws that say you can't actually sell beer from a brewery. You've got to sell it on to another, someone else who owns it for you, which is a bit weird.
Is Hilden Ale still available in Northern Ireland? Because that was the traditional Northern Ireland Hilden Ale, wasn't it? I really don't know, to be honest.
Yeah, I can't remember last time I was over there what we were drinking. I mean, there's quite a lot of craft. There is some craft beer now because there are breweries doing it. And then, as we're talking about York, again, one of my mystery boxes. I'm a skinflint. I'm currently buying mystery boxes from all these beer manufacturers because obviously they've got all their Christmas stuff. And like this was like 20 quid, I think. So I've got a Brew York, the Fairy Tale of Brew York, which is a peanut pecan maple vanilla milk stout. So there was a 10% one of these. This is the 4.9%. So I'll let you know how that goes.
Do you put it in a glass or eat it with a knife and fork?
I don't know. But again, I do like Brew York's, artistic cans, etc. So, and we'll come back to Brew York shortly. So, guys, let me share the screen, and then we will crack on. And
this pale ale is very nice, actually. One of the best bottled ales I've had in a recent time. It's very refreshing, slight citrus. A little bit biscuity, but yeah, if you can find it, I would recommend that one.
Now, I'm determined to keep us fairly swift tonight because it takes me so long for these damn things to bloody build because we take 2 hours talking. So we're there already. So this is going out, or we're doing it on the 25th of March. It is episode 9, as I said, not episode 8. I've got the wrong one there. I've still got episode 8 there. It's episode 9. But Bruce, we're going to do it in 2 parts. Again, as always here, we think a good game, and then when we start to think about the actual logistics of this. Yeah. So you're hoping that we can do maybe York. We'll do York today, and then come back in a couple of weeks' time and finish up the other half. That right, isn't it?
Hard too much to do in one episode. It would have been not enough here.
And again, as always, we're doing this in kind of 2 formats. So if you're listening on the podcast, fantastic. Equally, if you're watching us or listening to us via YouTube, again, we've got some of Bruce's nice pictures today that we're going to share. And obviously, you can obviously get both. So MaltTravAle's Podbean, if you want to find the website, Bruce has promised me he's going to write up the pubs. So we'll put those on there as well at some point. So, Nick, I'm going to pass over to you now. You did the last episode where we looked at logos, labels, and branding, didn't we? And just a few things you wanted just to kind of pick up on, as always, with the beer talking section.
Yeah, not so much corrections this week, but going on points that we made last week and just some additional information. So the first one is Guinness. I suggested that the ASA Advertiser Standards Agency wouldn't allow them to advertise it's good for you nowadays. You argued the toss and said, oh, no, it's full of iron. So I looked into it, and in fact, 1 pint of Guinness contains 0.3 milligrams of iron, which is 3% of an adult's daily requirement. So you think, oh, yeah, you could drink plenty of pints. But in fact, if you had 15 pints of Guinness, that would be the equivalent to eating 2 Weetabix. So the fact that Guinness contains lots of iron is a myth, according to the scientists. But as you pointed out as well, Bruce, is that the racehorses seem to enjoy it. Yeah, I think after 15 pints, you wouldn't probably know what you felt like. So that's the myth around.
I saw a few things on TikTok this week. People using, those Guinness, what they call agitator, using electronic toothbrushes to put it in the Guinness. And obviously, that froths it up, doesn't it, and gives you a full pint. Because I must admit, I did a few Guinness last week, and you know what? It's not a bad pint, is it? Really, even the cans, it's pretty good actually. The cans, I've got to say.
Hey, that's a good idea using that toothbrush, because I've used one of those agitators before, and they do work.
Yeah,
you've got to know how to use them. You've got to put a little bit of water on the base, and then make sure your glass is on there. But yeah, it does work. So that's
you can buy them, can't you? Now they're bad.
Once again, very expensive. You're looking at 50 or 60 quid now.
Yeah,
there are some Chinese copies that they get mixed reviews online. But no, it's and then obviously you've got to try and find the cans as well. Yeah. So you can't walk into a supermarket and buy the agitator cans. You've got to get them wholesale, really, or online, which means buying a slab of 24 at a time. But yeah, I was the same. I mentioned 3 weeks ago when the rugby started, I got myself just 4 cans of normal Guinness. They were giving a free glass away, actually, $4.75, get a free pint glass. And yeah, I enjoyed it after so long. In fact, I'm planning a little trip over to Ireland whenever we can get over there next year, probably. But due to go back to Dublin to try the real stuff. Yeah. So cover the Guinness. Next little logo there is the Great Newsome. We had a chat about ladies involved in beer and brewing last week, and I mentioned that I knew the assistant head brewer at Great Newsome was a lady, but I couldn't remember her name. So I'm going to rightly give her name now. It's Leanne. It's Leanne there at... there she is.
I've picked that picture off Twitter, so you hopefully you can't moan at me. So there's Leanne, who is, I think, is she assistant brewer, isn't she, at Great Newsome?
Yeah, is that right? Never met her, but each week they send me a newsletter through now after I bought my box off them. And each week they pay tribute to one of their hardworking members of staff. And I say Leanne's write-up was the fact that she basically lives all the graft and comes up with a lot of new recipes. So even when I do get over there, it'd be quite nice to meet some of these people face to face. And I say it was saving me the £8 of postage or whatever, or £5 because I was local. But it means I can buy a couple more beers as well rather than paying for the postage. Be a nice run out over the walls there. So that was Leanne. The other name that I forgot and you guys tried to help me out with was the long-standing steward at the Malton and Norton Railway Institute Club. And that was Derek Savage, that's right. And his dog was called Shelley. And I think I remember rightly, Bruce, he actually used to live in a touring caravan in the car park.
Yeah.
So, he really was there 24/7. I mean, he was a character, like some of these guys are. But certainly, whenever you went in there, Derek was always there holding court and holding fort. And he was a character, but he ran a good ship. And I think I don't know whether it's still open or not now, I think it's just one of those.
I don't think it is. And I
think it's another club in Malton that, traditional industry and traditional places of work have gone away and the older generations have died off and none of the younger generations have moved in there. So that was Derek and his dog.
I mean, to be honest, I put a picture there of it. It looks pretty run down there, but I spent many hours behind the bar there working there when I was a student. I came and worked there when I was on holidays. Some cracking. I used to work Christmas. I used to work all the crap hours: Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, Sunday lunchtime. But it was a good place.
Would it entice you in though if you didn't know that?
No.
Well, I mainly went in there for the snooker table and the pool table.
Oh yeah, they're full length snooker table, didn't they?
I think they had 2 snooker tables. Yeah,
and a bandit that played at £100 as well on a good day.
Yeah, if you knew which day to go and play it, that's right. And then the main function room, I did a couple of discos in there as well. So yeah, it served a good purpose. I mean, in a way, other than the problems with the flooding, it could be quite an expensive, important bit of real estate there. But I suppose it's still owned probably by the railway, possibly, I would think. So that was Derek. And then the final one was just going back to, we were talking about pub signs and the history of pub signs. And I suggested that the main reason why pub signs were adapted sort of after the Romans first utilised them and then the monks showing taverns and places to be able to stay was a particular king who decided that anybody who was brewing and selling ale should have a pub sign, mainly so that his official royal beer tasters could identify where they were and charge them appropriate taxes. So I did a little bit of research, and the king was actually Richard II, who passed his law in 1393. And the law stated that whoever shall brew ale in town with the intention of selling it must put out a sign, otherwise he shall forfeit his ale. And as I say, that was so that when the official royal beer taster came into town, they could very quickly find out who was selling beer and go and get the taxes off them. Now, moving on a little bit from that, the most popular pub name, it seems, in the UK is the Red Lion. Now, there is a little bit of contention about that. This is according to the In Science Society that I came across. They've got a nice little website and they're looking for members as well. So if you're interested in pub signs, then check their website out, which is www.insciencesociety. Can't remember whether it's com or .co.uk. But they state that the Red Lion is the most common pub name for two reasons. It's either because the link to John of Gaunt, who was the third son of King Edward III, whose coat of arms incorporated a Spanish castle and a red lion, and whose loyal supporters thought that he should have been king. And so they would put up a sign of the Red Lion. The guy who was king at that point, which I can't remember who it was, his crest was a white hart, which is why you often get a lot of white hart pubs as well. But the In Science Society attribute the Red Lion to a connection with James VI of Scotland, who inherited the English crown because he succeeded Elizabeth I, who obviously didn't have any children. So he became rightful heir. And once again, it was part of his heraldic coat of arms was the Red Lion. And so when he became King of England as well as Scotland, he said that all public buildings, including taverns, had to incorporate the Red Lion onto the building, just to really reinforce his rightful authority to rule over the country. So by incorporating the Red Lion in a lot of public buildings and a lot of taverns and inns that were around at that time, it was then adopted as that's the Red Lion pub. So that's where the Red Lion comes. But I say there is a bit of controversy depending which website you look at. Other people state that it's either the Royal Oak or the Crown that are the most popular names. And I suppose it's very difficult because pubs are opening, pubs are closing. I can't see many new pubs now taking on a traditional pub name like that. But any week, you know, a Red Lion or a Crown or a Royal Oak can be closing around town. I know in Malton we had, we've got theoretically, we have 3 Royal Oaks. One definitely changed its name to the Derwent Arms, which is down in Norton. The Royal Oak in Malton is now currently closed. So the only Royal Oak we still have left is the one up in Old Malton. So we have 3 Royal Oaks and no Red Lions. But we have a Crown as well. We have a Crown on the main street that was for many, many years called Sotheby's. And I think everybody in town will still call it Sotheby's, but the new landlord and landlady decided to take it back to what its former name was, that officially it was always the Crown. So that's my information on pub signs.
So, I'm talking of red, I'm moving to make me red Kilkenny. It's definitely very red, this beer. It was red in colour. Was he the guy found in the car park in Leicester, Richard II, or was that Richard III? I think it was probably Richard II, wasn't it? The one that the dug the car park and found in. We'll check that.
Yeah, not sure. We'll have to something to check for next week.
Okay, brewery highlights. Again, we've had quite a way off, so just pick up some of these really. Yorkshire Pudding Pale Ale is taking over the world, but I'm going to come back to that one in a minute because I've got another little segment on that as well. Bruce has mentioned the Go Beerly, the Crabish Cream Egg limited edition. And like you said, Bruce, I've not seen any. It's quite hard to get hold of, I think, isn't it?
It's sold out in hours, but it was absolutely wonderful stuff. I'm sure next year it'll be out on a much bigger production run. It'll be massively successful. I can see that becoming a real sort of cult status, really, and people are looking out for it. It was fantastic, yeah.
And I mentioned the Pinter, so that's what I'm doing at the moment, I'm doing a bit of brewing. And then again, this weekend was the Great British Beer Festival, Winter Festival. It was due to be in Birmingham this year. And so again, Camera, we mentioned a few times, I think in previous podcasts, did a kind of virtual weekend with some good beer. I although I didn't have the beers, I dropped into quite a few of the beer tastings that were quite interesting. There was a really good debate on Saturday evening with Stuart Bateman from Bateman's Brewery and Tim Webb, who is the World Atlas of Beer, and I think Emma Inch was on there as well, the beer writer of the year last year. Really interesting, just their thoughts about what we do, really thinking about the future of beer, what's going on, what's like to happen post-pandemic. I think Tim Webb made a really good point that, he did say, pubs are going to have to think about what they do because we're getting so used now to drinking at home. Do you want to go to a fairly crappy pub and pay 3 times as much as you would for beer that you can get in the supermarket these days? And we've mentioned the great range you get in supermarkets. eat food that's been kind of put in a microwave, that's kind of, just rehydrated almost, and music that you don't really like being played by somebody else. Whereas you can sit at home, you can have a fantastic meal, you cook yourself, you can have a great loads of beers cheap from the supermarket or from the bottle shop and from the online, and play your own music or watch the telly. So it was quite interesting, really. And again, there was Roger Protz and Emmerich both felt that beer taps are going to be really big because it's kind of cutting out the middleman. It's a great way for breweries to sell their product and meet their customers. And I think we like that. We like the craft bit is what we like. We like that, Providence, we know where it's coming from. And the big pub codes will carry on. And they were really worried about those middle of the roaders. And even people like Bateman's and Stuart was very honest and said, Bateman's is facing a struggle. They've been very much a cask only brewery for most of its history. They have now put 3 beers into cans. They are fairly regional. They pretty much sell beers in their area. They do some seasonals in bottles and things, but it's quite interesting. And again, similar actually, I'll leave this one, but there was a really good podcast, Rhythm and Brews, this week. They were with Julie and Fergus Fitzgerald from Adnams. And they had a really interesting discussion again about Adnams and how Adnams has really moved probably the last 10 years into being a fairly traditional brewery, brewing some fantastic sort of beer, but now have really gone into craft and lots of difference. And I didn't know this, that their wild hop beer is where they actually go out and ask people to pick hops, and they bring all the hops into the brewery. And if you do that, you actually get some of the beer. And in fact, Fergus was about to set off and deliver a load of beer. They do it just once a year. It's a one-off brew. And anybody just find some hops somewhere, pick them, get them to the brewery, and they throw all those hops into the beer, and they create wild hop beer, which is really interesting and working it through. The Malton Brewery. We've got to talk about Malton Brewery because we talk about Malton quite a lot, and we've been in contact with Howard, and hopefully in the near future we're going to have a little bit of we think we'll have a Malton couple of podcasts. Obviously, we've now got 3 great breweries in Malton. We've mentioned a lot of the brewing heritage, and I quite like Howard's little strapline there on his Twitter, which says, Malton Brewery, brewing beer on the banks of the River Derwent in Malton, just like they did in the 1800s, and home of the first and original Yorkshire pudding beer. And apparently Yorkshire pudding beer is taking the world by storm. So much so in that Howard is rebranding the brewery. He's already announced this, but they're going to become the Yorkshire Pudding Beer Brewery as well. I think you've had they were Horsedown, weren't they, as well? I think that's when I first met Howard. It was Horsedown, and he bought then, when, as Nick mentioned, their Sotheby's, when Sotheby's kind of closed down, or the family let go of the pub, and obviously the brewery hadn't been there for a while, has it? But he managed to buy the Malton Brewery name. Were they thinking about doing? We need to ask him really. Double Chance, which was always a very famous Malton Brewery beer, and Owd Bob. I don't know whether, again, he got access to those as well. That's what we need to ask, get him on podcast, ask him, don't we? Yeah. So look out for Yorkshire pudding beer. I can't find any yet, and apparently it's going off shelves like hotcakes. So we're going to look out for some, and hopefully we'll do a thing in the future. So look out for the Yorkshire Pudding Brewery.
I'll take a look tomorrow in the House of the Trembling Madness.
Yeah.
They've got 2 beer shops still open for takeaway.
Yeah, you see, Corks and Cansdale, Norton used to be great for that. He used to stock a lot of local beers, but obviously that's gone now. I think it's a Polish supermarket, which is a shame. This is why I'm sort of like, I have to go to the supermarkets now. We don't have any. I mean, Neil himself had his own little independent beer shop within the pub, within Sotheby's. Yeah. But as I say, I can't think of anywhere else in town now that I'd be able to walk in that isn't a supermarket and buy a local bottle of beer, which is a bit of a shame, really. But
I think we'll do a podcast on one. I was reflecting. Somebody was asking me the other day about beer, and I said, well, I really got into it when, for whatever reason, in my A-level economics, and I went to Malton School. We did the new Malton Brewery was our kind of case study. So we had to go down the brewery quite a few times and make notes that did my A-level economics all about the Malton Brewery. And actually I didn't do very well in economics, but I wrote about Malton Brewery in my A-level general studies exam, and I got a grade B. So that's kind of where the story for me started.
I wrote about Coronation Street. I got a grade A.
It's a couple of things then about beer news. 50 years of camera, obviously. Then there was quite a few things going on over that. That was kind of last weekend before, wasn't it? And we mentioned that in a few pods, etc. as well, which has been fantastic. And again, Roger Protz was making that point that I think, again, when camera was kind of kicked in 50 years ago, again, there were kind of one or two massive brewers that pretty much brewed 90% of all beer in Britain. And of course, now he was making the point, we're blessed in that we have so many breweries in Britain. We, with all those family breweries that we talked about, that, again, he's recently wrote about, the craft brewing scene, so really good. And I've put a picture there of the fantastic Whitby Brewery glasses, which I love, because I'm coming full circle. So I mentioned before, the last pint I actually drank in the pub was in October, around about the 25th of October, which was in the Duke of York, and it was a pint of, I think it was Whitby Jet, actually. And full circle, on the 12th of April, when we let out again, me, the wife, and my youngest, we're going off to Whitby. Fingers crossed. We're going to go to Whitby. The pub will be much open. I'm hoping the brewery is going to be open, because I know they spent quite a lot of doing all the yard, and they've got quite a lot of seating and thing in there, a pizza oven. So I'm fingers crossed I'm going to go and have a pint of lovely Whitby beer up on the cliff there by the Abbey. And I'm very much looking forward to that. I'm really missing a decent pint of cask beer. So fingers crossed, fingers crossed, fingers crossed. I don't know whether Duke of York will be open, because we mentioned the other week they haven't really got any outdoor space, have they? So
yeah,
you know what worries me is I've been looking up at website. Obviously, I know me and Nick said we might try and get together for a beer when I'm up there, and Bruce the same. But looking at a lot of pub websites and Facebook pages, there's not a lot being said yet. Whether they're all hanging on.
It's still uncertainty, even though these dates have been announced.
Yeah.
We're not getting anything from the government whatsoever officially what's going to happen. So I don't think people like to jump the gun. I mean, a lot, some of the bigger companies are doing it now. I got a couple of emails from Marston's and somebody else saying, "Oh, we're taking bookings." Fuller's, in fact, got in contact with me and said, "Look, we're taking bookings in certain pubs in London now, if you want to make a booking." But a lot of people, I mean, certainly the business I'm working at, we don't like to commit too much, because we don't want to disappoint people again, in case the government certainly move the goalposts within a week of when we're supposed to be opening again. So I think that's the thing, we're all being cagey. And also it's finances, to have somebody sat working on your website all the time, unless you're pretty IT savvy, you've got to pay somebody to do it. And you're thinking, well, hang on, I can't afford to pay somebody to do it until we're actually generating the cash to pay him. So I think that's where it is with the social media now, but probably not so much website. I think Facebook is a little bit easier now for people to update and pick up. So maybe nearer the time, just keep an eye on people's Facebook and stuff like that.
I was just checking the bottle then, because that beer's suddenly gone cloudy. I wondered whether it was a bottle condition. It doesn't say that, because one thing I learned actually on the weekend, which was with Christine, who does quite a lot of the tastings with camera. A lot of brewers now are using something called sticky yeast. So she said that Proper Job, they use sticky yeast. And what that means is it actually sticks to the bottom of the bottle. So it's yeast, it is still bottle conditioned, but when you tip the bottle over, the yeast will not move. And they've designed that now so that you don't get that cloudiness. So, sometimes when you've got to be careful at the end, which is something I'd not heard about. So it's really popping now that, look out for sticky yeast. And she's mentioned that Proper Job, which we've talked about before.
That'll be the leprechauns in that Kilkenny.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've just released them.
Bruce, we're going to talk about this magnificent city, which is York, which is pretty unique in that it's still pretty much, it's just about one of the few truly walled cities, isn't it, in the world, that is pretty much the wall just about goes all the way around, doesn't it, the old city. And I've just got there, for those on YouTube, a fantastic image of York Minster, and I reflected to the guys who were here. We had some Australian friends over last 2 years ago now, two summers ago, and we met them in York. We took them on the walls, and they all said, "Wow, it's the city here that hasn't got any high-rise buildings apart from the Minster. The Minster completely dominates the skyline." And I think actually, Bruce, that's the Catholic cathedral or church, isn't it? Next to that, on that image there, which is where you were married. Yeah. Which is again a spit from York. So it is a fantastic city. Bruce is Bruce has the privilege of living in that city, or just outside the walls, aren't you, Bruce?
Yeah, not fair. We're there, about 10 minutes walk. So yes, so tonight we're going to not go around the whole city, because there's far too many pubs to feature in one episode. You'd all be nodding off. So we thought tonight we'd start by staking to the west side of the river, probably where some of the lesser known.
A little map on here now.
Found.
Yeah.
And not Cross River at all. We'd save that for another time. So we have a starting point, of course, to sort of guide you all through. And I will write this up on the website. But it seemed sensible for our starting point to be the railway station. Presumably, lots of people over the day will do that one.
Which again is just outside the walls, isn't the railway station? It's on that on the map there. It's on the left hand, kind of left corner. Very far. You can't miss it, York Railway Station, which is a fantastic building in its own right, isn't it?
Yeah, it's probably the finest in the country, isn't it? It's amazing. And
you're going to spend money on it, aren't they, Bruce? They're going to refurbish all the frontage and just stuff like that.
Yeah, they're going to knock the bridge down outside. A bit controversial, really. They moved the ticket office and things. I'm not sure it's the move for the better, really. But yeah, but the guts of it will remain intact. So yeah, so if you're arriving on the train or going to follow this trail, you'll start at the railway station and actually inside the railway station, because we're quite fortunate that people run the Euston tap, Sheffield tap. They've also, of course, run the York tap. Converted Victorian tea rooms just by platform 4 there. It's got an entrance on the station and also one outside the station as well. I think we have a picture for those looking.
So, yeah, just before we do that, we're just going to do a few. I'm just going to give you some York pub facts because again, we've mentioned York before as being we think it's probably the best. Roger Proctor was trying to claim that St Albans was the best place to be because it's got 59 pubs in bloody St Albans. Well, Roger, York's got 365 pubs. That's the myth anyway. And he's supposed to be able to do a pub with every day of the year. Well, that's true or not, we're not quite sure. I think when you count the bars, and Nick mentioned the bars, but there is some real facts here. If you put some real facts for you, so the ONS, which we know lots about now because we get that every week with the COVID numbers, the ONS says that in York there are 9.1 pubs per 10,000 population, and the UK average is 5.8 pubs per 10,000. So York, I think, can claim to be the best place in the country for pubs, etc. But now I've been doing a bit of work on this. There are only 3 breweries within the city limits of York. And I do wonder whether these two can actually name those 3. I mean, there have been breweries that have come and gone a little bit. We've mentioned the Tower Brewery, Nick, you mentioned a couple of weeks ago. We have mentioned York Brewery, which again, fortunately now is all the way out to Massam, still in Yorkshire. Do you know what the 3 breweries in York are?
Now we've got, there's Brew York, obviously.
Yeah.
We've got the Ainsty Brewery at Castor Mulbus.
That's not in York, though. That doesn't count.
Right, not counting that one. Then neither, so we'll be counting Treboom either, will you? At
no.
Edinburgh.
And I put Rudgate there because I thought Rudgate was York, but it's not. It's Topwith.
Yeah, that's bad.
Between Harrogate and York, isn't it?
So you've got Isaac Pode, but they're not in the city, are they?
No. So you've got Brew York, which
Half
is the
Moon,
biggest one now. You've got somewhere called the 3 Non-Beards.
Never heard of them. Yeah.
And the final one is called the Ice Cream Factory Brewery.
Oh yes, that's right. Yes, see a lot of that kicking about now, getting the Fosgate and Mifflegate socials. Nice.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And they do quite a lot of joint collab beers with the social. But they tend to don't do any casts though. It just says they're only doing keg beer at the moment. And it's in the old Capaldi's ice cream factory, which is why it's called the Ice Cream Factory Brewery. So now we've talked about this before, haven't we, really? Why is it that there are no breweries in New York? Now, I thought, water. We've talked about water. We've talked about Burton. We've talked about Tadcaster. We've talked about Fuller's in London. So I thought that might be it. The water must be so manky in York that you can't brew beer. But do you know what? The water in York is exactly the same type of water, whatever you call it, count as it is in Burton, as it in Tadcaster. It's literally the same as Tadcaster. So it's not the water.
Real estate.
Possibly medieval town.
Space.
Yeah.
Space. To put a brewery in, unless it's a little microbrewery in somebody's garage, you need space. And space is an absolute premium because it is a walled town. And if there is any other type of industry in within the city walls, it's generating far bigger income than brewing would do. So I would say it's down to real estate. Chocolate
factories need quite a lot of space as well, don't they, Nick? And they're bigger than probably breweries. Certainly the ones in York are.
But they aren't within the city walls. They were always on the periphery, and obviously York was built by the chocolate people, the chocolate pioneers. And as you had mentioned before, maybe that's something to do with it. The fact that it was
it's the Quaker influence who were great landowners who won't allow alcohol to be brewed.
I can't find that written down anywhere, but I think you're probably right. So we've got to go back to 1651 when a certain George Fox was kicked out of York Minster by the whatever they were, the Church of England top people, because he was obviously questioning the right of bishops and people to have this thing. And of course, George Fox goes on to become the founder of the Quakers. So the Quakers can say that the Quaker movement was actually founded in York back in 1651. And as you've mentioned there, Rowntrees and Terrys were both very famous Quaker families. And of course, one of the things about chocolate was that was part of that temperance movement. The idea that by offering chocolate and coffee actually as well, it was a way of keeping the working men, and not just working men, some of the middle class and upper class guys out of the pubs and the bars. And chocolate and coffee was seen as being a more suitable refreshment and highlight of the week, rather than going and getting smashed.
Yes, I mean, that still goes on today, because of course New Year's Week is a village that was built entirely by the Rowntree Foundation. It's protected and run now by the Rowntree Trust, and there's a covenant on it, and of course it's a dry suburb of York. There's no pub in New Year's Week.
And it does sound like, obviously, Rowntrees and Terrys and other chocolate companies that came and went were very powerful. And of course, the other thing that, again, I kind of remembered, but I didn't realise, of course, you've got two fairly famous schools in York. Well, you've got probably several famous schools, but the Bootham School and the Mount School, which I guess, Bruce, in days gone by, would have probably produced most of the middle classes of York, wouldn't it? You know, the shop owners and the schoolmasters and the lawyers. And of course, they're both Quaker foundation schools. They're both Quaker schools and still are. The third school, of course, St. Peter's, which is famous because of Guy Fawkes, who went to St. Peter's and obviously tried to blow up Parliament. So I think that's probably
a church school again. I mean, I think, you mentioned about coffee and chocolate drinking. Certainly the working classes weren't, they couldn't afford a beverage like that anyway. But obviously they were kept in line by, as you say, by the people who were either employing them or providing them with housing, with accommodation.
But remember, that's the whole point of Terrys and Fry's and Rowntrees. Well, penny chocolate bars were exactly that. They almost subsidised the cost of chocolate to allow the lower classes to be able to access it. Because you're right, it was quite an expensive thing. But again, let's go back, York Minster, massive monastery type building that's been there for, since the Vikings were there. That must have been brewing beer. They must have had the brew house there. So it's really interesting how over the years, and I think let's be honest, if we're honest, it's probably a combination of all those things: space, the power of the Quakers, and probably also because you've got some damn good breweries in Tadcaster, which is literally 15 miles away from York. So why try and do something when you've got a town?
I think you've got to remember as well that although there were only factory jobs working in Terry's, Rowntrees and Cravens, they were historically very well paid for factory jobs, and they came with lots of perks and benefits. So enticing staff away would be difficult to match their wages. And also, when you speak to people in York, there's certainly some anecdotal evidence suggests that Rowntrees and Terrys were very resistant to any other big businesses moving to the cities. And a lot of people say that they blocked plans for the Ford Motor Company to build quite a large factory at York in the late 1960s, because there was always quite a rich tradition of automotive part supplies in York. So Ford apparently were going to build a plant here, and they stepped in very rapidly and made sure that didn't happen, so there was no pressure on their wages. And also the university is now expanding at a massive rate of knots, but they also think that they put the brakes on some of the university expansion as well for the same reason.
It could have also been the social aspect as well, in that certainly Rowntrees, they had their own theatre, and created social clubs and sporting facilities like bowling greens. So instead of what you would normally do in your not your work time and your downtime, the normal thing would be to go to the pub. But I suppose if these employees were offering a lot of other alternatives, just going to the pub to see your friends, then that was something as well. There wasn't a need for brewing as such, but although there were a lot of pubs in town, that's the other amazing thing, that there are still so many pubs, and a lot of those pubs are historical, going right the way back, and yet makes you wonder where they did get the beer from, really.
Yeah, but I was thinking, well, Bruce, I mean, York hasn't. I mean, York is. I think you're right there with the culture thing. York's quite a highbrow kind of city, isn't it? Opera house and theatres, museums, lots of green spaces. You can walk around, and I guess, Bruce, there's no kind of. I'm thinking that in Leeds you've got like Gipton, in Manchester you've kind of got Moss Side. York hasn't got really a Moss Side, has it, or a Gipton like Leeds has. It hasn't got those big estates of working class guys. Yes, there are some estates in York, but even like you said, a lot of them were kind of garden city kind of estates, weren't they? And Roundtrees and Terrace were also about the holistic view. They were educated there were institutes for learning, music, the arts. So that was all there as well. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about York Brewery, Bruce, because again, there's a bit of a history there, isn't there? That there was a fairly good, successful brewery in York.
It was founded by a fellow called Tony Thompson in the late 1980s. They started brewing at Toft Green, cracking little brewery. Some great brews going there for a while, and just totted along and then built up to an estate of 4 pubs eventually, including that one in Leeds. They brewed a Guzzler, which was great. They brewed a fantastic beer at Christmas, Snowflake, which was amazing. It's came out at Christmas. And seemed to go along quite nicely, but obviously they got older and accepted an offer from Black Sheep, from Lancaster Brewery initially.
Yeah. Mitchell's on it, Bruce. Yeah,
Mitchell's from Lancaster, yes, that's right. Yeah, and again, things were left pretty much unchanged in their hands, and of course, a whole new market was developed for all the York Brewery beers. They put them in all the Mitchell's hotels. They were predominantly a hotel business, but sadly, I believe they went into administration, I think, didn't they? So that then caused the brewery to be closed. Black Sheep came in, which on the face of it, you would think was quite a good move, really, heritage of brewing there. But sadly, they weren't there too long at all before they announced they were closing the brewery, and it's now production's moved out of York, sadly. The brewery building's still there. I mean, it's bizarre, really, because they had a successful business. There were 5 brewery tours a day running in that brewery, which, were a great source of revenue. I'm sure they were. I'm sure on a weekend, Saturday, they were getting hundreds of people a day, and it seemed to be a really good earner. They had a successful tap room there as well. I say no delivery costs involving the beer, but the whole lot's left the city now, which is really quite a shame.
Yeah. I guess about 5-6 years ago, you would have put that on this tour, wouldn't you? Because it's that side of the river, isn't it? You'd have probably had it as
absolutely.
One of your.
Yeah.
Do I remember? Was it kind of a members club pub?
It was. It was very cheap to join. Though it was about £5 a year to join. But I mean, unlike some brewery taps which we've been to, some are, some of these breweries are an industrial estates, and they're like quite austere add-ons to a shop. Maybe some of the taps are really quite disappointing. It felt like a proper brewery tap room. It did feel as though you were really in a drinking that was part of the brewery, not just an add-on. It was comfortable. It was great. A real sad loss.
In the latter years, they did relax the membership rules as well. I think they basically threw CAMRA. They said if you remember a CAMRA, you can go there. I picked up a bottle of Guzzler the other day, and I'm afraid to say it was a sad shadow of its former self again. Guzzler's always been a lighter beer, 3.5%. So I think it was middle of last week. I thought, just have a beer middle of last week when we weren't doing the podcast. And I say I got a bottle of Guzzler, and compared to what it used to be like, I'm afraid, it was very metallic and wasn't nice.
You just kind of, right along. Beer's about passion, isn't it? If you're brewing your York beer, great. If you're Black Sheep, you've got some fantastic beers that you're passionate about that you've brewed, and it must be quite hard then to have that same passion for a kind of a cuckoo brewer that's you're pushing out something. Now, what about Rudgate Brews? Because obviously, and again, maybe talk to us about Jorvik, which again is one of their beers.
Well, Tock is a big expanding village, 5-6 miles out of York, midway between York and Wetherby. And again, this is one of these breweries that's situated on an industrial estate. Because the price of property in York so expensive, what you've seen is that many, probably a good case in point, they probably would have been a York-based business 10, 15 years ago. But like so many businesses, with the expanding city and the cost of houses, we're seeing entire warehouses being demolished and houses put there. So even the warehousing businesses now and the factories are all gradually leaving York. And one of the big beneficiaries has been the village of Tockwith. Tockwith, a real traditional sort of agricultural based village. That's expanding at a massive rate of knots now, and there's quite a large industrial estate up there as well. And so they've gone out there. But this is a cracking brewery, Rudgate now. I mean, they've got about 4 or 5 key brews, haven't they? The Ruby Ale's fantastic, isn't it? What do you call it now?
So what about that name, Jorvik, Bruce? Can we perhaps just mention a couple of names about York?
Anybody who knows history should surely not need explaining the origin of Jorvik. Because Viking.
Bruce, we have listeners in America and in Spain, remember? So,
so
Jorvik was the Viking name, wasn't it, for York? And
sure,
Iberacum was the Roman name, wasn't it, for York? And I guess that York is it's basically Jorvik shortened or Anglo-Saxonized, isn't it, to become York that we now have. And I've just cracked on my York brewery, my fairy tale of Brew York, and yeah, it definitely smells. I'm not getting any peanuts, but I've got some pecan and maple. Definitely, it's very nice. Yeah, very nice. Right. So, Bruce, sorry, we're back to the trip then. So you staggered out of the train. You've kept away from people throwing up over the train, which you've talked to us before about.
That's right.
Being on the rail.
So you don't even have to leave the station. You just have to find platform 4, and you'll be at the opposite side. I did try to take a shot actually at the station side entrance to the York Tap, but there was a policeman who wouldn't let me ride my bike to the station. I explained what I was doing, and he still wouldn't let me in, which that was really mean. So I could only get the exterior shot.
So, probably a lager drinker, Bruce.
Now, this has always been, this was a refreshments room. I mean, I never remember it as refreshment rooms. I always remember it used to have a model railway, and it did for most of its.
It was a fantastic model railway as well. Yeah.
And then, like you say, probably about 10 years. About 10 years ago, it became the Tap took over it. Is that right?
Yeah, it is.
And
I mean, they kept it pretty faithful as well. I mean, they've spent an awful lot of money maintaining, not really preserving it. Is the word, of course, I'm looking for. It's an unusual place, actually. It does bring mixed opinions. They have a stunning range of beers on there. They've got blackboards outside the bar, and they never have any less than about 18 to 24 real ales on, some affordable session drinking ales, some rare beers. I mean, the commitment to real ale is stunning, really, the people who run the taps. And I think this is the biggest range of any of them. I think they have more here than the Sheffield than they used to.
Was it that Pivovar company that began?
It is, yeah. Taps? So, of course, these are the chaps who run Peveney. They run they have links with Tap Brew Company. They've got links with Thornbridge now as well. They've got another bar in York, which I mentioned in a few weeks' time. And these chaps also import Barnard Czech Pilsner beer, which is a great beer. And because they import it and sell it, you also get it at a really great price as well. In the tap.
So again, I remember is it a circular bar in here? This kind of 2 halves into the building. It's kind of the station side is quite a large, kind of ovally room with a big oval window anyway, and then there's a smaller bar on this side. Isn't there? Did I remember that right?
Yeah, that's right. Like an island bar, but with
I mean it's open plan, but it's on 2 sides, isn't it?
The bar kind of goes in a circle, doesn't it? Am I dreaming this?
Well, it's sort of a D shape.
Yeah. And like you say, Bruce, from out of there, you're on, the walls will be in front. If you come out of that door there, the
walls will be facing in front of you. I should mention as well the York Tap, because every local, there's always a long-run debate about the losing the York Tap. The commitment to rail ale is fantastic. The choice beer is fantastic. But obviously, it's a very old building, and they really do struggle with stopping the loose.
Yeah.
Don't be surprised if you go in there.
My tip is, if you walk out the station and turn right, there's some gents just about, in fact, we can probably see them on that picture, isn't there? There's some gents almost right in front of the York Tap on the station, and if it's not a races day, you can normally walk in off the station, can't you? Okay, so
can I just say, I mean, that would be my point, Bruce. I mean, you've said they've put a hell of a lot of money into preserving the building, but compared to some of their other outlets, it's one of my least favourites. I still just think when you go in there, it's a bit tatty compared to certainly one they've got Harrogate and the Sheffield one as well. And as I say, it may not be it's not their fault. Obviously, what they started with was really a building that had been allowed to degrade and deteriorate for many, 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 many years. And I think it's the infrastructure that, they would have to give it a complete makeup. And then other people would turn around and say, well, it spoilt it. You've made it all new. But yeah, I would never not go in there because it's always so handy for when I'm on the train, even when I'm meeting you, but out of their taps, it's probably halfway down the list as far as I'm concerned.
I understand there were massive restrictions on what they could and couldn't do in that building, though, in the defence. I think there was There were things they possibly may want for.
I presume it's Grade 2 listed. It's got to be. I mean, it's part of the station, I would imagine. So, Bruce, I think we're going to turn right here at the station. Is that right?
From here, no, we're going to go out here and we're going to go.
Oh, no, we're going to. Oh, yeah.
We're going to turn left out of the station, and you'll walk actually just under the walls, follow the road round, and then just. The
daffodils will be out this time of year, won't they?
The late this year actually. They're coming. All right. Of course, of the mild winters, we've had. No, they've been at the end of February, but they're coming out now.
I just look at this picture. Sorry, this I've just reminded me. Well, you sent me these pictures this afternoon, and I started looking at them and putting them on the thing, and everyone's got the fucking curtains. You know, it just reminded me. You know, what a bloody shame. This is a cracking pub that'd be buzzing, 24/7, and yet look at it. And then the ship in a minute. It just makes you feel just bloody horrible.
It's just right. I left work last night because I'm working in the office still. Left work at 5 o'clock. But whizzed about York on my bike doing this, and it got increasingly more depressing. Just taking pictures of closed pubs, really. You saw the hanging baskets all dead and withered. Sort of muck accumulating a bit. And there's nothing more sadder than a closed pub. So say you come under the road, you come out of the station, you turn left, just follow the walls down, follow the road round, you'll go to the big arch, and right in front of you, you'll see the Maltings, just to dip down there. The river's actually about 100 yards to the left. Malta, but say we're not crossing the river tonight. So the Maltings, quite a nondescript, almost ugly building, you have to say. Now, this used to be a bass pub called the Lendl till about, crikey.
The Lendl Bridge, Bruce.
The Lendl Bridge, about.
Used to be a popular haunt for prostitutes, I'm told.
Yes, I have heard that, yes. Yeah.
Because obviously down under the river, under the bridges, was a good place for them to ply their trade, as it were.
I only ever went in once, but it was quite cosy, and the clientele were friendly. We know now by the way.
Especially the women.
But obviously a fella called Sean and his wife Matty, they took some. It must be 25, 30, 20. They put big ads in our camera magazine when it was the birthday. I think it's 30 years ago now. And this time Rail Ale was beginning to grow, and they were about to start. It was a massive advocate for Rail Ale. And for all that time now, he's just had a constantly changing array of rail ales, really well kept. Really good food that his wife turns out from the kitchen. Very affordable food by York standards. The chili's legendary. If you're going to try all these pubs and you tried the chili early on for some lunch, it could have a real detrimental effect on you later. It's legendary for its hotness as it's chili. But again, the bit slightly extended now to have an outdoor area there just to the left. But I say this is a real staple of the York Rail Ale scene. It's really atmospheric inside. Despite its extension, there's only enamel signs everywhere. Some really interesting beer choices. I think he's got real cider on there.
And the beer has always been. I've always probably met you in there, Bruce, when I've got off the train, and I've got to say, I've never had a bad pint.
No.
Really, really good. Now, Bruce, you've got to explain this.
Well, yes, I've not been so long since I've been in these pubs now. Why is it there? Yes.
So if I take it back off again, if you're looking at the YouTube on the right hand side where that lower window is, where the black sheep sign is, if you jump through that window and look down, you would see this, which again, for those of you on the podcast, is a toilet seat. A full toilet, sorry. The full toilet. Yeah. So there's a table and a bench next to it. And then in the corner by that window, there is a proper toilet with a wooden lid. And I think it's probably an old British Rail toilet. And there are signs at the back a bit about bloody British Rail toilets and things. And at the end, the pride of the pub is to be able to sit on that and drink a pint sitting on the bog.
Well, a lot of people don't sit on it. So I've sat on it a couple of times when all the other seats have been taken. Yeah. Some people are self-conscious. They don't want to sit in the toilet and have a pint, but I've got no problems.
Obviously, Sean is the legendary landlord, isn't he, of the Maltings? So
he is. He's a large-than-life character. He calls a spade a spade. He won't tolerate swearing in the pub, but I don't think that rule applies to him, really.
Hey, he uses swearing when he's putting the adverts in the used boozer, isn't it?
I don't know what the story is
as well. I mean, if you go on a weekend, obviously on a weekend, York was a mad party town, and this is pretty much the first port of call, but he doesn't let them in there. So even on a Saturday when you see the hordes of people, they've got to be very well behaved to get in there. In at all. It's an incredibly well policed.
It's never a rowdy pub, is it? But they will have probably. If you go on a Saturday, they probably will have bands on the door. Won't they? Probably have door staff.
They do, yeah.
On the door. Yeah. So going a week, and I don't know what the story is about at all. I just one of those eccentric things, isn't it? Like you say, the pub's full of eccentric bits and pieces, isn't it? Hanging off the walls and everything.
Wooden doors on the roofs. A lot of. I like it because obviously I like my brewery in here and memorabilia. So he's got old vending machines, stuff like that. You can sit in there on your own and gaze around the pub without fear that somebody's going to wonder that you're staring at them and saying what you're looking at. It's a pub that we've always gone into, and once again it's somewhere that I would always go into as well. And that outside area on a nice day is benefit from extension, because it was always quite a small pub. It was literally a one-room pub, and that was a thing when it was popular. It was busy, so he's got a little bit more extra breathing space now, which is good.
And as Bruce said, the river literally is about another 100 yards on your left there, so you can walk down and look at the river. There'll be obviously lots of boats normally and rowing, and if you up on that bridge there, you get a fantastic view. The Minster just kind of gleaming at you right in front of it, isn't it? The kind of front towers. So Bruce, where would you carry on down the river, or would you kind of go back?
Because what I do in this case, because remember we're on the west side.
Can't cross the river. You can't cross the river.
I meant walking down by the side of the river.
Used to walk by the river. And we'd turn left. Now, normally, before we move on up to our next stop, it's worth pointing out that if you go to the Bolton and turn left, there's a huge office block now staring you in the face. This has been turned into a Malmaison hotel, which of course normally wouldn't interest us, but the people who've developed Malmaison Hotel, which is about, I think, 11, 12 or 13, 10 or 11 stories high, they're actually installing a roof bar on there, hopefully in time to open it in a few weeks' time. So that could be an astonishing.
Well, just looking at that picture there, Bruce, obviously the Maltings has got a flat roof.
I was thinking the very same thing. You wouldn't think
that'd make a cracking roof terrace.
Is Bono involved with Mal? I've got in my head that Bono's got something to do with Malmaison.
Oh, right.
You two. I don't know. I might be thinking that up. And also, Bruce, the Grand York Hotel is up there as well, isn't it? And all the old railway.
The old headquarters of the London North Eastern Railway. Fantastic building. York's only 5-star hotel currently, but you can really see the railway influencing it there. There's a great sort of also grand.
Don't go in there for a beer.
Austerity.
Well, I'm saying, Bruce, you've drank in there for a beer a few times, Bruce, haven't you?
Yeah.
I think just to sit in the lovely lounge. I think.
No, the only time I went in there, I had to buy the round, and that's what I'm saying. I'm not going in there again.
But by York standards, it's not too outrageous. I mean, you're sitting in a piece of history as well, aren't you? Really?
Right. Yeah.
That's the thing. Yeah. Okie dokie. So say, obviously, the Malmaison might be worth going. I think getting a seat on that roof terrace. Yeah. But that will offer stunning views of the Minster. Interestingly enough, beyond the Malmaison is the 5-star Grand Hotel. That's its neighbour. So they're going to be the 5-star hotel with their views blocked now. You always swear, to be fair, by the Malmaison Hotel beyond there looking down.
Then from 5 stars, let's go to Trafalgar Bay.
No, we're going to go now. What we'll do is we'll come out the Maltings, and actually we'd then we'd go left, we'd go along Rougier Street. And when we get to Rougier Street, we would then take a little turn right, and you'll be at the bottom of Micklegate. Micklegate, one of York's greatest drinking streets, and sadly now it's lost its finest pub, Brigantes. That closed down about 12 months ago. They announced we weren't reopening because they were faced with an insane rent increase. That was a fantastic pub, great choice of beers. One of the market town taverns. The people run things like the Tithe Hat and Bar Hat. What's the pub in Skipton they own there? But sadly that's gone now.
Narrowboat.
There's a Brewdog pub down on Micklegate there as well. They've got spoons at the end of it. Some great restaurants, but sadly nowhere worthy.
But again, Bruce, it is probably worth mentioning that is it Micklegate at that end? What's that? Because again, one thing you've got to look out for. York, we've mentioned it, the walled city, but it's got the old gate. It literally has got the old gates. And I think the north and south gates, and this is the south gate we're at now, are probably the best ones, aren't they? So you've got Monk's Bar at the top end. What is it? Is it at Micklegate? Is that what it's called? I can't remember what it's called, that one.
Well, they've got bars, aren't they? They've got Micklegate Bar.
Micklegate Bar, yeah.
Monk Bar.
Yeah.
warm get bar, and
if you think of like a little mini castle with a road that goes straight through the middle of them, that's kind of what you've got, isn't it? It's
of course the
they're
gate
fantastic.
came down and barred the entrance, and that's where the name bar.
Lock you all in at night and keep you lot out, keep you lot from making them out.
So for the purpose of this trip, we're not going to go to the end of Micklegate. You can do that sometime. So go to Micklegate, and then you'd see a little very sharp, cobbled, almost alley on your left, and that will be St Martin's Lane. And you go down there for about 100 yards, and you'll come to the Acorn, which is next pub on our trip.
You got me the wrong way around then.
Got the wrong pub on there.
You sent me in this order, right? Acorn.
So this is if you're on YouTube, there, this is from the opposite end. So the Acorn, a fantastic pub, quite unique. Doesn't see any sunlight at all now because it's down this almost Dickensian alley now. I mean, 25, 30 years ago, those narrow houses at the end of it, they were sort of tenements, so we're still being used as tenements about 30 years ago. Some of the worst houses in the city, obviously, they've been sold or gentrified now. But St Martin's Lane, cracking little place now, and with it.
But again, if you get here in the night, Bruce, there's a little old-fashioned street light at the end of that street.
Absolutely.
And it is like literally going back into Dickens or probably
atmospheric
or something. Really, really atmospheric. Yeah.
It really is.
The name's interesting. I always thought it was the Acorn, but it's not. It is the Acorn, isn't it? I don't know where that.
Well, originally it was the Acorn, and that was a Cameron's tied house, and then. I think Cameron's decided to close it down because obviously not a great deal of passing trade down there, was there? And then it became one again of the stalwarts of the sort of real ale revival as the Acorn. That's 20s. It's a narrow, traditional one-room pub now, wooden floorboards. Fantastic, varying choice of real ales. It's got a small
Roosters Yankee. They always used to have Roosters Yankee on there. One of the first place you could get Roosters Yankee.
Yeah.
Again, incredibly well kept beer, and got a great little terrace outside as well on a sunny day. You wouldn't think it looking at there, but there's a terrace that's sort of elevated a bit, and if you get outside on a sunny day, it's actually a lovely, lovely sun trap. They also do great staple food. Does a great quiz on a Sunday night as well, and definitely one for this trip as well. That is a cracking pub, the Acorn. So from the Acorn, we'd come out.
I've had another picture there.
Oh yes, sorry. Yeah,
I do remember again. Back to Nick's point about space and lack of space in a medieval town. The Acorn has got its cellar literally underneath the bar, and it's got a trap door. And I don't remember that. I remember one of the barmaids falling down that bloody door. It's one of those, and I think I tried to find a picture. I've got to think that might be it. That because I'm thinking that I have sat in that corner there. So if those are again on YouTube. The cellar door is literally in the floor. It's one of those kind of old trap doors.
Behind the bar.
And I remember we'd been in there one day when it was up because somebody got into the cellar, and one of the other girls behind the bar bloody fell down it.
Wow.
And it's always a bit of a myth, I think, that they always have this thing about it falls down, but it must be a thing in York, because doing a bit of research, I came across this in the Evening Press. That back in 2018, at the last drop-in, which is one of the York Brewery pubs that Bruce mentioned, similar thing happened there as well, in that one of the bar staff fell down the bloody bar, the trap door to the cellar, and in the end, they had to pay out £44,000 as damages to this particular person that fell down. Delivery driver. So it's a thing in York pubs is that look out for where the bloody cellar doors are, because you might end up falling down. But I always remember being in that pub, like I say, it's dead narrow, and we just heard this scream. And I think luckily she managed to kind of stop herself. And you see there are stairs there. But yeah, I always remember that trap door in the behind the bar there. So look out for that.
Have somebody with very small feet. Look how steep it is.
I know. Well, like Nick's cellar, where Nick is today, cellar like that. Right, Bruce, where are we going next? Because I've queued these up probably the wrong way then. So give me a clue.
So we're going to make our way next to the Golden Ball. So we'll come out of the Acorn and we'd turn right, continue away from Micklegate, and we'd walk about
that's not it.
300 metres. And that would bring us down into Bishop Hill.
Golden Ball.
So we're now deep within the walls, remember now. And Bishop Hill is a lovely residential area. Little terraces, fantastic houses. So look at it. And this is the Golden Ball. And if you have to think of the epitome of a classic street corner local in your head, it'll be something like the Golden Ball. This really is the junction of two streets, but across that junction, it's got beautiful glazed red tile bricks around it and some fantastic original restored John Smith's Tadcaster Ales and Stouts signage. I mean, it's a fantastic looking pub, both on the outside and on the inside as well. On the inside, you've got 4 different rooms. You've got a bar, again, that has real fire in it. There's a little, they've got a great atmosphere in there. There's a fantastic little snug with its own entrance that goes on the other side of the bar. There's a room where that's really comfortable, all dark wood. The furniture's been restored. It's so atmospheric. They get Irish music in there on a Sunday night, and folk music on a Sunday night. And then a great, it's got another room as well, actually, which I've forgotten about, a more modern, which came on the extension again. Great room there. So 4 rooms there, loads of room, and a fantastic outdoor area as well. It's got quite a large beer garden, literally in summer, and also a fantastic range of rail ales rotating all the time to really support the local ale movement. And important to note, this is actually a community-owned pub as well. I think it's got about 1,500 shareholders, I believe, own shares, all from the Bishop Hill area in the Golden Ball. So a real community enterprise. If you come to York, one you've absolutely got to visit, really.
Do I remember you taking us there? Because did they do some kind of special chips or something, Bruce, if I remember rightly, many moons ago? I'm sure you took us in there for some reason, that they did something like dripping in chips or something. And I remember going there on probably a Saturday night when it was absolutely, like you said, it was rammed. It was absolutely buzzing.
I don't remember that. No.
No, I can't. There was something why you took us there that they did on a particular night, and this is quite near the river, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, this
just get flooded then. I know you've had the floods in York.
I mean, it's Skeldergate, very close by, gets flooded. It'd be pretty calamitous if it got up this far, because this is a gently rising hill.
Yeah.
But so in the Bishop Hill area now, Skeldergate's on there. Skeldergate gets flooded really, really badly.
Yeah.
The Golden Ball would stay dry. I mean, it seems strange to tell people this now, but until about, I don't know how many years ago now, probably 10 years ago, John Smith used to brew Magnet Ale. And that was a fantastic beer. It was full body. Sadly, they're no longer brewing at all. And hard to believe it's John Smith's talk about brewing a great beer, but a proper part of Magnet was.
And I love that above the door, the jug and bottle department, which I guess is where you went and filled up your jugs.
That was a takeaway, yeah.
Yeah, takeaway, yeah. Okay, right, Bruce, where we going next?
Okay, so from the Golden Ball, we're going to come out and we're going to turn left along Victor Street. We're still in Bishop Hill area, but go ahead for Victor Street, then head to, you'll see the walls right in front of you. Just head through the walls, look to your right, and you'll see our next pub, the Trafalgar Bay. So the Trafalgar Bay stands alone there on Nunnery Lane. Nunnery Lane now is one of the main arteries into the city. There's a permanent traffic jam there normally, because I took this in lockdown, even in rush hour last night there, not a car to be seen. And the Trafalgar Bay, so they're locked up. So I say, we can't talk about pubs in York without touching on some of Sam Smith's pubs. Again, totally unique company, unique owner. We could talk about him all night. And the Trafalgar Bay kind of sums up in a way, really. I mean, this is a traditional 4-room pub now. Never that busy now, sadly, because I fear an awful lot of its big drinkers over the last few years have reached the age where they're no longer with us, sadly. But despite the dwindling numbers, Mr. Smith keeps it open. Now, it was open plan until about 3 years ago, when Mr. Smith decided to restore, put another wall back in and make it into small rooms again. And while normally at all before that, in this case, I do actually think he lost a little bit of something about it, because the room's now a bit austere. What I would say about the Trafalgar Bay, though, is that if you're in York and it's a cold, freezing night, and you may be staying up on Blossom Street in one of the Premier Inns up there or something, or you're doing this trip, if it's a freezing cold winter's night, you're going to Trafalgar Bay, and it will be like a furnace, because Mr. Smith insists on having the temperatures lit if the predicted temperature is beneath a certain temperature. And the Trafalgar Bay actually has 3 rail fires in it. So you go in there, there's a small room to your left-hand side that has its own coal fire. It only has 2 or 3 tables in that room, but it's got its own coal fire. Then you've got a fire that serves 2 rooms, a huge fire. This place is like a furnace. Again, you've got full range. This has a bigger range of Samsung, a lot of them. The couple of right now are trying hard to make it a real vibrant pub again. They open up during the day, let community groups in for all sorts of things. And if you're in York and you want to go somewhere for a chat, no distractions, no music, it's either Sam Smith Sales. Trafalgar Bay is a good place to go, say, but particularly on a cold winter's night. And I said it does break up that journey from Nunnery Lane. If you're going from town down Nunnery Lane towards Bishop Hill, towards Bishopthorpe Road, which I know lots of people will do, it breaks it up. But say for the purposes of our trip, it acts as a stopping point between Bishop Hill and the Golden Ball, and our next pub, which is down in the.
Just while we're there, but the Bar Convent's on the right of this, isn't it? Is that right? Am I right?
The Bar Convent to be the left of this, actually. Towards town.
Yeah.
And the Bar Convent is on the.
And you can actually stay there, can't you? If you want to kind of have a joint weekend, very saintly, and then I mean, it's quite famous. The Bar Convent, isn't it? It's Mary Ward was a very famous Catholic educationist she was there for a while.
That's it. Yeah. I mean, once again, you look at that building again, if you take away the hanging pub sign and the hanging baskets,
you wouldn't know it's a pub, yeah.
You wouldn't know it's a pub at all, would you? Yeah. There's no etched windows, there's no Sky Spots available here, there's no TV, there's no quiz night posters in the windows, there's absolutely nothing, no branding or anything, is there?
No. And again, if you were driving to York, there's a really good car park across from this, isn't it? On the lane that is not a bad place. Yeah, doing these pubs really would be if somebody was driving for you. Okay, Bruce. So where are we going next? We're going to carry on down.
Well, if you can resist temptation to go look at Margaret Clitheroe's withered hand in the Bar Convent, you'd have to get that.
I remember there was a relic, and I can't remember what it was. That's right, Margaret Clitheroe. That's right. Yeah,
her hands in there. She was crushed under rocks.
Rocks. That's right.
She was placed underneath the door, and rocks were then placed on her by the banks of the River Ouse. Yes, justice was
apart from a hand.
Yeah, and the hand's still there now as a mark of her martyrism. Yeah. Okay, so you come to Trafalgar Bay, you come out of the end, you turn right again away from the city, and just keep heading right down there. You would pass the Victoria Vaults, pub which does great music. You'd also pass, sadly, the Old Ebor, pub that's never going to see the light of day again. The Old Ebor was that unusual mix of being a down to heel working class pub that really championed rail ale. And so you could go in there last year and get there was a choice of 5 or 6 rail ales, and they were knocking them out at £2.60 a pint when they're about £4.50 in the city. So the Old Ebor will be missed. But anyway, you press on down to Clementhorpe and Bishopthorpe Road area, and the Bishopthorpe Road shops has actually been voted the finest high street in the country. It's referred to as York's Notting Hill area, Bishopthorpe Road. The house prices are extortionate, and it's got this row of shops, two-side road, full of great independent shops, local food shops. It's a really vibrant area.
Bishy Road, Bruce. I thought you said it's going to refer to Bishy Road.
I'd like to refer to, yeah. Caused a lot of jealousy in York, so we won't dwell on it. But they are very fortunate that they've got some of the best pubs in York there. The Swan, which will be our next port of call on this trip. There we are. There we are. Yeah, so this one again, another fantastic street corner local, and this former Tetley Heritage pub is now incredibly run by a chap who invests heavily in York pubs, and this is a great example of what is referred to as a corridor pub. You go in there, there's a wide corridor that also acts as a huge area for people to drink as well. So the corridor, if you like, is oversized, but it does give way to 2 traditional drinking rooms. Great atmosphere, fantastic bar, huge supporters of rail ale, wide choice, and the people who run this also own the York Gin Company as well. So they also have the full range of York gins on as well. There's lots of food in the Swan now. He's reduced his up now. He's a little bit to keep going. He's a strong. I think he's a huge critic of the government's policies towards pub reopening and how they've handled the lockdowns. And there's always our local papers saying, this is a epic struggle to stay afloat at times like this. He has a very small beer garden in the Swan, but not enough, I don't think, to justify reopening again on April 12th, sadly. But say this is a classic pub, always full of people, a great friendly crowd in there though. You'd be made more than welcome. Great choice of rail ales.
Quite small, isn't it? It's not huge, is it?
No, but the room on the back's quite fair old size, isn't it?
Yeah, and unfortunately, he's not going to be able to put tables and chairs out because it's a busy junction that in the Bruce.
Yeah. I say, but an awful lot of original features in there, and I say,
I think I think Nick, me and you were like, I think on a Saturday lunchtime, which is a great time to go, really, because like you say, Bruce, with people popping in with shopping. I think it's that kind of pub where they buy the papers and they put the papers on the bar and you could sit down.
It is that classic layout. I remember we had a conversation about Taylor's landlord. We went in there and he had it on. And I said, I haven't tried it for ages, and I hope it's like it used to be. And it was a good pint. It still wasn't like we remember it in the 1990s, but we had a good chat with the lad behind the bar. I don't know whether he was the landlord, but he was certainly knowledgeable on his beer. So yeah.
And I just remember sitting there and reading because I don't know, they had the garden in the town and stuff. So it was nice to sit and have a nice Saturday in the papers, and then we wandered back into town. Okay, moving on then, Bruce.
Okay, so resisting the temptation to go left to Bishop Road shops, you'd come out, you turn right, and then you'd go downhill. So you come out of the Swan, turn right down the street there, the small street, the residential street, and you start going downhill. You would see the river at the bottom of the hill. But before you reach the river, you would see the slip in on your left-hand side. So the slip then, probably one of York's least well-known rail pubs. And it was a pub that just tooted along with its regulars for years and years. And then it closed. And the gentleman, Pete Crosman, and his business partner, who owned the Swan, they thought, it'd be great to take over the slip as well and bring it back to its glory. So yeah, classic looking little
lovely little pub, isn't it? Yeah, lovely.
Going there and say fantastic range of rail ales. It's a big
residential area, and there's some new build around there in the Bruce.
Yeah, an awful lot of posh apartments going up around it, but the traditional estate's still there. And again, the river is just
terraces and
it's literally about 75 metres to your right there. Hence the slipping. But I say probably one you may miss Stunning Trail, but go in there and I say it's a great cracking little boozer, great atmosphere again. Full of people, friendly crowd, but quite a large outdoor area, actually, courtyard at the back. They may get away with the reopening, hope they do. But definitely one to put on the visit, and say that would be the final one of our western side river trip. If you're coming around the city and you're picking some of these out and doing a circular tour, we'll resume here next time and then go and cross over the river over the Millennium Bridge. Okay. So that was those 7. And finally, very briefly, we thought as an alternative, if you need to add on to that, if you're leaving the station and you've got a bit more time to kill, and we'd say staying at the city centre, there's a little trail down the Holgate Road as well. 3 pubs, sadly, I've not got pictures of 2 of them. I meant to tonight, but the landlord was outside one of them, and he's a big Glaswegian. I thought he might think it's a bit funny taking pictures.
Didn't say to you, listen, we're going to be doing a podcast about your pub.
Oh, no, So follow the road from the station, go around, past the Everyman Cinema. You go to Blossom Street, rather, Everyman Cinema. You'll come to the Crystal Palace. That's again another Sam Smith's pub. Great 2-room, classic.
This isn't the Crystal Palace on the screen. This is the Fox.
Yeah, I know exactly. Yes, so the Crystal Palace, the great 2-room buzz again. Real coal fires in both rooms in winter. Well worth a visit. Lovely little drinking area out the front. Friendly crew in there, and Sam Smith's prices. And again, if you're staying in the Premier Inns on Blossom Street, those 2 big Premier Inns, this is the Crystal Palace is 2 minutes walk for you on the Holgate Road. And you just wanted to go with some, take a break.
But once again, Bruce, easy to miss because it's part of a terrace. It's almost like in a terrace, isn't it, with a garden at the front?
It is. But they have,
unless you look out for the pub sign.
It
is. That is on the pavement. You could walk past and not realise that it's actually a pub.
No, they've just renovated the big pub sign up in the air on its stand now. That's 20 foot up, so it's easy spot now. They've restored the pub sign as well. So from there now, you would just then cross over the Iron Bridge and come to the Crystal Palace. You turn right. It's a huge, dirty grey iron bridge. You're going to cross the East Coast Main Line Railway there. Even though you're really close to the city centre, still got that iron bridge. And as soon as you come there, you'd see a church on your left-hand side, past the bridge. Go down that little residential road there and you'll come to the Volunteer Arms. And the Volunteer Arms, again, another real oasis, a proper little unlikely looking place to find this. You go inside and it is quite a ramshackle pub, the Volunteer Arms. It reminds me of those windowless pubs that you see in Glasgow neighbourhoods that also look very dodgy, but really quite warm and welcoming. And again, a fantastic range of rail ales and definitely worth a stop for one to strike off your list. So come out the Volunteer Arms, go back to the main road, and you'd walk another 5 minutes down the hill, and then you'd see the Foxes very close to where I live. The Fox stands alone, stands proud there with its huge garden. It's currently got the marquee up, look ready for reopening. And this is a great kind of listed building now that can't be taken down.
Another Tetley heritage pub when it originally, Bruce.
It's called the Tetley Heritage Pub, and it kind of made it. It was built to serve really, and the
Victorian splendour almost.
It is. It's a fantastic building.
Yeah.
The carriage works literally 2 minutes walk at the back of the Fox to the left of it. The slightly reduced in size now, but if you're interested, you can actually see the great sheds where a great many of the railway carriages, the golden age of our railways, were built. I think they were there, Derby, Doncaster, Crewe. They're still in not making carriages now, but restoring stuff for Network Rail. But at one point, they employed thousands of people around the shift, and of course, in the breaks, those chaps would all head to the Fox in the days, and they'd have the beer lined up for them. They just say they go there, have a couple of pints. In the Fox, you could move them inside and outside. Then across the road, there was a fish and chip shop called Lasky's, and they send the apprentices across. They'd have to order something like 60 ones of each before they went back to work. When you go inside the Fox, it's fantastic. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rooms inside it. It's pretty much unspoilt. Now, it was a Tetley heritage pub, like Nick said, and was quite well made. It was really well maintained, but then entered a period where it's kind of in the wilderness. It belonged to Punch Taverns. It slowly began to decline, and at one point it looked like we're going to lose it forever. And then, thankfully, Ossett Brewery stepped in and invested heavily in the Fox. It's now spick and span, great inside. They've kind of restored it, preserved it where they needed to. It's had a thorough, tasteful, not a makeover, but it's a fantastic pub inside. It totally gleams. The 2 other smaller rooms have now got that regional feel where they meant to feel like railway carriages, as they were, and there's still some of the original pieces of railway inner from the carriage works days in the original room on the left hand side. I think the Sprinter carriages that used to were the Sprinter trains at one point where all the upholstery was made in those carriage works, and then you can see the sign where they say Sprinter Room. The lads hung their own sign and designated their room. It's also got one of York's biggest beer gardens, and they've erected this huge marquee currently, which I'm guessing they'll be able to reopen on April the 12th. Massively, massively popular pub, the Fox, but definitely worth a visit. And so if you're walking from the city centre, you'd walk here from the railway station in 15 minutes.
20 minutes, yeah. You can jump on the bus, can't you, Bruce?
Can you
that was the last
bus?
time that me and you sat down and had a pint, wasn't it? In December of last year.
It was, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I said, if you want to get the bus, get the number 1, number 5. They actually just ask for it, just talk at the Fox and do that for that.
Yeah, but you're so lucky having that as your local, Bruce. You really are.
No, we are very, very lucky, really. Yeah.
I can't understand these marquees. So that marquee, like you say there, I've seen another pub tonight that's got a marquee. Why is that different in a marquee?
Yeah,
maybe sat in the bloody one of those front bars there. I just, it's bonkers.
Officially, they should have all the sides off it, really. But it's like smoking areas. Smoking areas have to be over 50%, but most pubs, what they did was put a garden shed up with a door opening and said, right, that's my smoking shelter. Yeah. It's down to the local authorities again. It depends how strict they want to be. But most smoking shelters in pubs now, if you think it has to be over 50%, well, a smoking shelter's theoretically got 6 sides to it. It's got a roof, a floor, and 4 walls. So in theory, if you've got a roof and a floor, all the 4 sides should be open. To make it over 50% open. But I say the vast majority smoking shelters. And this is when the smoking regulations came in, 10, 15 years ago now. Vast majority smoking shelters in pubs don't actually reach the level that they should do. But a blind eye is taken. And it's quite obvious anybody from York Environmental driving past that pub could see when it was there. But I think overall, I would think it goes on the police response as well. If the police know that they aren't being called out to that pub every other night of the week for various different reasons and problems, then they would look upon the landlord as being quite conscientious and a decent person and allow it to happen. Obviously, if they get complaints or they get somebody coming along saying, "Oh, I don't think this is right," then they would have to take action. But I think it's one of these things that, they're using the laws against landlords who aren't very conscientious and aren't
Yeah,
obeying
well,
the rules and
that wouldn't be
regulations.
the police. Well, that's a local authority, city council thing, ain't that? Now, Ossett Brewery again, just picking up one of the chef podcast this week actually. Ossett are they're quite a forward-thinking brewery. That we mentioned the Rat Brewery that they're linked to, and I learned this week that Salt Brewery are also they're part of Ossett as well. Or they Ossett oversee them, and there's quite a few breweries now that Ossett kind of look over, I guess, and support them with some of the marketing stuff as well. And as we said, we quite like those beers, don't we? They're there as well. Oh, yeah. Right, Bruce. So we've done a quick zip around the kind of the left-hand side of York, the kind of western side of York, and
the west side.
Like western side. We've kind of we've kept away from most of the touristy bits, so we've still got some delights that we can, and maybe some of the perhaps the more older pubs and the most haunted pubs like the Oldie Starry Inn and all the ones that we kind of mentioned there as well. So I think that's whet our appetite, and we'll be back for more hopefully in a few weeks' time. Next week we are heading towards the Easter weekend. It's my last day at work next Thursday, so I might be drinking a few more beers. It's Good Friday next Friday, so we do the podcast on Thursday. And again, we mentioned a couple of times that I think one of the last trips me and Nick probably did was, and I'm obviously heading up there after Easter, smugglers ice cream, steam trains, and beer. And we said we'd have a look at the North Yorkshire Moors and Coast trip. So we'll start from Malton, we'll go via Pickering, jump on the steam train. We might have a very special guest from Channel 5's The Railway if Bruce can sort it out with his nephew. And Bruce is trying to get him to rig in from he won't be in there. Kieran had been a bloody carriage somewhere, won't he, trying to fix the lights or something, rather than and that diesel thing that he always drives. Is he the only guy that can drive a diesel train?
Hey, they've got the new toilets now, haven't they, Bruce, on the carriages? No more lining poo for him, put it that way.
All right. So Pickering, we'll jump on the North Yorkshire Moors Steam Railway. We'll pop into Gothland, the centre of Heartbeat. We'll call it Gromont. We'll then get a connecting train to Whitby. We'll then jump on the coastliner and go via Robin Hood's Bay and end up in Scarborough and struggle into the stumble in with a few of the pubs here and there as well. So that's the plan for next week. So and that'll take us to Easter. So we might have a week off at Easter. We're going to do a London trip at some time out. We said we'd do a London session. We'll do a northeast one. We've got York Part 2. We need to do a Malta one, and hopefully we might be able to get Howard from the what will be then the Yorkshire Pudding Brewery Company to come and join us for that one. So I think that's it, guys. Any final thoughts? Any final?
No.
Enjoyed both my bottles of beer tonight. As I say, certainly if you find Thixton's Pale Ale on the shelves, give it a go because I've really enjoyed that one tonight. Okay. Yeah, really good.
I must admit, I quite enjoyed this Brew York one. It's only the Christmas beer. It's gone down very well. So I've got a 10% that I might have tomorrow. I might save that for next week actually, and have it next week's podcast. Okay, cheers guys. Then we will see you all in a week's time. I'll hopefully get this sorted out. Try and get it on online and various places. So remember, you get us on Apple, on all good podcasts, and
I'll write up the walking trail as well.
And Bruce promised me that he'll get me the writing trail. I'll put it on the MaltTravAle.podbean.com, the website, which has got all the links to the beers and things on there as well. Okay, guys, see you all soon. Stay safe.
Cheers. Bye.
Pubs open soon.